Naam, karibu tena mtazamaji. Kwa sasa hivi tuko katika kipindi cha The Front Row ambapo mtangazaji maarufu Akisa Wandera yuko hapa anaendesha mdahalo huu ambao unahusiana na swala zima la uvumbuzi miongoni mwa vijana na vile vile wa Kenya kwa ujumla. Vivyo hivyo basi tuliwahusisha wa Kenya katika maeneo mbalimbali na kama tulivyodhihirisha katika eneo la Taita Taveta walivyotagusana na mwanahabari wetu kule Hezron Kimari, walikuwa na haya kusema kuhusiana na uvumbuzi katika Jamhuri ya Kenya.
Tunaweza pia kutengeneza hizi zinaitwa za kuosha mikono, mitungi ya kuosha mikono. Tuna uwezo huo kwa sababu tuko na taasisi zetu pia. Tunahitaji utaalamu kidogo na ukute kwamba tumetengeneza mitungi ya kutosha ya kupatia watu wetu kwa ajili ya kuosha mikono. Na site moja, one of our colleague ambao ni kijana wetu mdogo ambaye aliweza kutengeneza moja nzuri sana ya kuweza kukanyaga, kuweza kuosha mikono, na kwa njia ile tunaweza kutumia ule utaalamu kutengeneza zetu wenyewe kwa ule urahisi.
Ingekuwa vyema sana kama tungeweza kupata sisi kama wakazi wa Taita Taveta, ambapo tunajua tunayo human resource ya kutosha. Kuna vijana wetu ambao wamesoma hapa Taita Taveta ambao wanaweza kuja pamoja wakishirikiana na serikali yetu ambayo inajali sana maslahi ya mtu wa Taita Taveta, wakashirikiana wakatengeneza app moja ambayo itatoa materials ambazo zitakuwa zimetengenezwa na vijana wetu hapa Taita Taveta, ambazo zitajali maslahi ya watoto wetu hapa Taita Taveta, ambapo watakuja pamoja na kusaidia ili watoto waweze kuaccess hizo materials na waweze kufanya revision wakisaidiwa na walimu waliopo pamoja na wale wataalamu wa mambo ya mambo ya e-line au mambo ya mitandao.
Na asante sana Akisa, hao ni wakazi wa eneo la Taita Taveta. Lakini vile vile Akisa, katika mdahalo huu tunapozungumza, ningependa labda angalia swala fulani ambalo jana tulikuwa tunazungumza na mwenzangu Odeo Sirari. Akasema kwamba wanahabari wasiwe na mbio ya kukimbia mahali kwamba kuna vumbuzi fulani, kwa sababu huenda ikawa unakimbia pale unaambiwa kwamba mtoto mwenye umri wa miaka 9 ndiye akavumbua kitu fulani, lakini ukifanya uchunguzi baadaye utakuta kwamba kumbe ni babake ndiye kamtengeneza kile kitu. Kwa hivyo wewe mwanahabari na kamera yako unakimbia pale kwamba mtoto alivumbua hiki, alafu sasa unakimbia unaambia walimwengu wote kwamba mtoto mdogo tu, kumbe ni babake. Maana haujatuonyesha zile picha kwamba yeye alikuwa anafanya hiki na hiki,
and how the process was.
Yes. Endelea na mdahalo.
We'll talk about due diligence in English. But let's speak to the PS. There have been a number of submissions there from the residents from Taita. I would have the PS responding to that. But even as we're looking at that, PS, there have been concerns from especially young people on what interventions are there by the government to just ensure we create a conducive environment for young innovators to thrive. How are we cushioning them from exploitation? We are aware that the ministry has come up with an advisory committee to look at these new innovations. Talk to us about that, and how effective and efficient do we expect this to be at the end of the day?
Thank you very much again, Akisa.
Yes.
Yeah, I think a couple of things. One of the things we want to mention is that actually the Cabinet Secretary established a COVID-19 ICT Advisory Committee. The key objective of this, that the committee was to actually develop and implement a framework for identifying, supporting, and scaling local ICT solutions that can support the country in its effort to combat the COVID-19 pandemic. I mean, this is a committee of very seasoned ICT professionals, and I believe they will be in a very good position to actually look at how do we take care of innovations as they receive them, how are they nurtured, and how do we even actually take them to the next level in terms of implementation. Prior to that, we also have what we are calling a white box. Actually, it's called the Huduma White Box. Really, this is an incubation service that enable innovators to share their innovation online. So if somebody has an innovation, they submit their innovation through whitebox.go.ke. Again, there will be a panel of people who look at them, panel of judges. They do the judging, the shortlisting, and there are various levels where there are people who require further training. That will be addressed. But one of the things we mention, we emphasize, is that we would always want to link them up with the IP lawyers. And I'm glad we have Kurgat here, Wakili, that it's important that we actually bring to the attention of these innovators the fact that intellectual property needs to really be protected. So we normally take them through our training and actually link them up through our IP lawyers. And also we are working very closely with KIPI, the Kenya Industrial Property. So these are some of the initiatives we are taking to ensure that the innovators are really protected. What are some of the things we've done? Actually, within the white box, we already have 608 registered innovators, and we have actually received 240 submissions. Some of them have gone through evaluations, and we have made various recommendations arising from these innovations. Akisa, I want to mention that last week, a couple of weeks ago, we had what we are calling Innovation Hackathon at Konza. And we were actually asking people to focus their innovation on 3 key areas: food security, health, and issues relating to job creation. We had a total of 298 participants across the whole country because all the 47 counties were represented. So again, this one is another initiative whereby we'll be looking at these particular innovations. Then after looking at the judgment, those innovations that will move to the next step, we will actually encourage them. So the evaluation process will still go on up to completion, and then we will see how to take them forward. But I think one of the things that we would want to emphasize again, that really during the training session we normally introduce them to the aspect of intellectual property and how that can be protected. Yeah.
All right. So then, how else are we exploring the situation to just ensure that, as far as technology is concerned, we move just as the globe is moving, aspects to do with telemedicine. We're seeing a number of countries moving towards that direction. When we're talking about working from home, you've talked about just ensuring that we expand the space of connectivity for many Kenyans, but there's the issue of connectivity even in rural areas where things as simple as electricity are a problem. Talk to us about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, thanks. One of the things I would want to say as a country is that innovation is really not new to us. Mm-hmm. And we have been always on the global map in terms of looking at innovation. So even prior to the coming up of COVID, in Kenya, His Excellency the President had launched what we are calling the Big Four agenda, that was focusing on food security, health, manufacturing, and housing. So as a ministry, we had taken upon ourselves the responsibility of ensuring that we put forward the agenda of telemedicine, having realized the challenge we experience as a country in terms of the medical experts and things like that. So we had already established infrastructure connectivity between all level 6 and level 5 hospital. So we have what we call the National Optical Fiber Backbone Infrastructure. This is a fiber link that runs across the country. And through this project, we had actually connected more than 20 between level 4, 5, and 6 hospitals across the country. This is the foundation of telemedicine, because telemedicine itself now becomes an application, but then you cannot have an application if you do not have the requisite infrastructure. Mm-hmm. So I would say that we had started this thing way, way before. So with an existing infrastructure, therefore, then implementation of telemedicine becomes very easy. And you're all aware we had a situation whereby we had our doctors exchanging their experiences with the doctors in China. That was really a sure fact that there is already an infrastructure. What we are doing now is to ensure that we extend the infrastructure to almost every corner of the country so that hospitals and doctors are able to communicate amongst themselves.
All right. Thank you for that, PS Selfas. I'll bring it back to you because we're talking about enhancing a conducive environment for young innovators, being one of them. And the PS, they're talking about some of the interventions. Do you feel them? Are these things you would be open to? And as a young innovator, what are some of the loopholes that you think the government would help young innovators just fill up or fill the gaps to just ensure that the space is better for people to come up with new ways of doing things?
Ideally, the PS has addressed some good points that most of the innovators are facing. So initially you find that different people come up with different solutions, but how do you get it out there to be noticed? And I'm glad that he's mentioned there are quite a couple of initiatives that the government has put in place just to help the different innovators or the different software developers to showcase their work, because this literally leads to promoting of local talent. Because if you look at all the different things that can be done out there, we have internal capacity to do it as a country. And some of the initiatives that the cabinet, the PS has just mentioned, are key things that we as developers are looking forward to enjoy the benefit of such initiatives. I came across one of the Konza hackathon last week. Mm-hmm. I've also seen another publication on the dailies, I think today, as part of the initiative. And I'd like to thank him so much for trying to help providing a platform in which different innovators can be able to just showcase whatever they've done and go through training. And I'm looking at even, he's mentioned that during that training, you go through a process where you're trained about intellectual property, how you manage intellectual rights for your application. And this is a very good initiative, which I'd like to commend the Permanent Secretary for.
Great, thank you. Let's speak to Professor Bitange Ndemo. Unfortunately, we've been having a rough time with that connection, so I'll give you more time to address an array of issues just as we head towards the tail end of the show. Earlier on, Professor Ndemo, there was a question on the blockchain technology and how the government is exploring it, as well as how do we ensure that Kenyans understand how this technology works. You were in the task force for emerging technology, so we'd love for you to talk to us about the strategies in place to ensure that this runs smoothly. And also, post-COVID-19, there will be a new normal. What do we expect to see? What are some of the key areas that we need to focus on as far as innovation is concerned? Professor Ndemo.
Yes, first I want to put my points on the issue of intellectual property. The whole of the newly industrialized economies of Asia grew on the backdrop of reverse engineering. If we start threatening our young kids that they are going to you are violating this and that, we will never do anything. The trouble with the US and China is that they look at one another's innovation and reverse it, and then they start quarreling. If we want to play big in the world, we must take some levels of risk and be able to get into that space. Number two, on the blockchain or the emerging technologies, the government did well by creating the task force. We did the roadmap. And if you see the new applications being done by young people, they are leveraging on those technologies. There is already so many of the mobile lenders are using artificial intelligence, what they call credit scoring, to provide funding without collateral. Then we are seeing a lot more blockchain-based in terms of streamlining supply chain. Some of the companies that you see around the vegetables and stuff, they are all using blockchain to streamline supply chain. So application is ongoing. This is something that will happen. The way they say in Swahili, upende usipende, we are getting into that space. And the industry is gotten into that. The government has a roadmap now. They need to look on how to regulate the sector going forward. So we are actually doing very well with respect to other countries in Africa. And going forward, post-COVID, in my view, we need to begin to implement some of the issues we raised in the report, meaning we need to completely streamline the entire supply chain. We, for example, disrupt the entire SME sector, formalize it because we have the technology now, we understand how the technology works, and that's how we can help the government collect more taxes. And once you collect more taxes, then the tax rate would come down and everybody would benefit from that. So we have the technology, we understand the technology, we have several people now working in that space. We need to talk to universities to begin to provide programs that would lead to capacity in the days to come. The universities are a little behind. That is why there is a mismatch between what the industry needs now and what the universities are doing. They need to be shaken up a little bit so that we provide the courses that would prepare our young people for the future of work. That is what I can say post-COVID. We need to shake up the universities a little bit and be able to provide the right education for the future of education.
Thanks, Prof. A lot of comments and questions, but we can't quite go through all of them. I think I'll give each of our panelists a minute for closing remarks, even as we head towards the tail end of the program tonight. I'll start with you, Mr. Kurgat. You spoke a lot about the intellectual property rights, being an IP rights lawyer. And of course, the professor there saying we really should not threaten young innovators about stuff like this. But this also takes a lot of time. To patent an idea takes about 18 months. It's a long, grueling process. Even as you give us your closing remarks, how can young people exploit this space fully while following the law?
Thank you very much, Akisa, for giving me the opportunity to go first in terms of making closing remarks. But I would want to correct one impression. I did not threaten the young innovators. All I said is that they should follow the law, because what is happening is that the government, I listened very keenly on what the peers for ICT, Mr. Chieng, was saying, that they have established what they call Huduma White Box. All these things the peers is talking about are things that if the government had put in place IP policy for all these years, would not be grappling in the dark, would have gone and made strides in the IP field a long time ago. We are lagging behind because the government did not put a lot of effort in the sector concerning IP. IP has been a third-rate concern for the government, but I'm happy they have woken up. Maybe out of this COVID-19 pandemic, we are learning a lot of lessons that we need to have a lot of things happening. We need to do our own things here, but we must do them and also comply with the law, plus also complying with international law, because all patents, wherever they are registered, for example, must meet not only local standards, but they must also conform to what other countries have done. And this is because WIPO has put in place various mechanisms to ensure that nobody cheats about the so-called patents that they're creating. We don't want to have a situation whereby patent trollers are reigning supreme in this country, threatening others about breach of patent rights they have because of poor examination or poor observation of what the law requires. So all I'm saying is that the younger generation should seek legal advice more instead of relying on government bureaucracy to help them to move forward.
All right, let's quickly get your closing remarks, Mr. Ajira, and then we go to the PS.
Thank you so much, Kisa, for giving me this chance. I think one of the key things that's coming out is that we as young developers do need some mentorship from the government to be able to protect even our ideas. So one of the things probably that we could look into is how do we, I'd imagine probably some of the young developers might not be able to afford legal fees to go and just find out the cost of coming up, getting an IP for their idea, or going to find out how to do, how that whole process happens. So providing a platform where people, young developers can be able to access this, and also providing a platform which the government has done where innovators can be able to submit an idea is a good step in the right direction.
Thank you. PS, your closing remarks, please, in a minute, we don't have too much time.
Thank you very much. I think I'll be very fast. Again, is to appreciate the innovator, that really as government we are really committed to play a very key role in helping the innovators. And we really conduct a lot of training. And if you visit our website and the various advertisements that we normally make, during these training sessions, we actually take you some of these processes. And I think we will try as much as possible to publicize and bring this to your attention. Secondly, I appreciate when Prof says that we really needed to shake the universities. And indeed it is true, because technologies such as artificial intelligence and machine learning and big data, these are the next generation courses. Actually not the next generation, the present generation courses. And if the university could actually up their game and focus on this form of development of digital skills to our young people, then we will place ourselves in a very good position as a country, and I think that will make us prosper.
All right.
In conclusion, I must say that we are really in a global crisis and we must innovate. The positive thing about us is that innovation is not new. Therefore, I request our young people to actually put on their innovation caps and let us get new ideas that will take us to the next level.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Bwana PS. Professor Ndemo, I'd let you wrap it up for us with your closing remarks on how we move forward after this.
I thank you for this session, actually, to begin to talk about what is going to happen in the future. The future is coming, and a lot of things are going to happen. There are very disruptive technologies which people have been talking about, but nobody was listening. This COVID comes with a silver lining, and we must take advantage of it to ensure that we build the capacities that would handle the technologies in the days to come and make our young people competitive globally. And the issue of patents, I encourage young people to leverage on Creative Commons, where they can protect their ideas without going through the rigmaroles or the expensive process of the patenting process. So that has worked for many countries. We need to look at it. I think this is the beginning of discussing the future, and hopefully you can organize this again and be able to sensitize Kenyans on what is going to come in the days to come.
Well, thank you very much. That's how we wrap it up here on Front Row. Quickly, our guests tonight, Professor Bitanga Ndemo, an ICT specialist, Mr. Jerome Ocheng, Principal Secretary ICT and Innovation, Elfas Hajira, innovator, developer, as well as trainer at Strathmore University, as well as Moses Kurgat, an IP rights lawyer. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us tonight here on this all-important conversation on Front Row. We've also had you from home speak to us on all our platforms, comments and questions. Thank you for engaging with us, Frank. As we wrap it up here, I believe we'll be coming up with a better and more conversations around COVID and the disruptions we are witnessing.
Ni kweli, manake mimi nadhani kwamba serikali ina changamoto tu ya kuhakikisha kwamba wanawapa kichocheo wale vijana ambao wanakuja na uvumbuzi mbalimbali ili kuwapa moyo, na tunashukuru kwamba vijana wa Kenya wana moyo sana wa kuendelea na masuala ya uvumbuzi na teknolojia.
Well, my name is Akisa Andara. Sharon Momanyi comes in next with KTN Prime. Stay with us.
This is KTN News.